The story begins with a scream from the protagonist. One of the maids inside the palace asked her if something was wrong. Lady Iris knew a duke's daughter shouldn't lose her composure in front of others, so she said it was nothing. The protagonist's name was Iris Grey. She was the daughter of Duke Grey from the Kingdom of Calm. She was set to marry the second Prince Elliot in 6 months when she turned 18. In recent years, Crown Prince Henry's health has declined, and his absences from official duties have increased. Close aides have begun calling for Prince Elliot to be named Crown Prince. Just as she was thinking, today she also felt unusually tense. Then she remembered. She remembered the memories of her past life as a regular 30-year-old office worker in Japan who died from overwork. But that wasn't the issue. The real issue was that, judging by the people around her and what had happened so far, there was no doubt that this was the world of the White Rose series. It was a classic story of a savior who saves the country and falls in love, a popular otome game from her previous life. Everything that had happened so far matched the game's plot disturbingly well, but she didn't want to believe it. The Iris and the White Rose series was the villainous noble lady who bullied the heroine. In other words, depending on the event's outcome, she would be executed. But then she figured that remembering might be better than not remembering. She tried to remember what triggered the execution. To avoid it, she had to rely on her memory of the game. She got into it back in high school, so she didn't remember it that well. If she remembered correctly, there were 3 options: execution, exile from the country, or being sent to a convent. She didn't understand what kind of country would execute someone just for bullying. It might have gotten so bad that she stopped playing halfway through. Currently, the heroine of the game, the savior, had already been discovered and was under the protection of the knights. Although she was invited to the party of the knight captain, she had never met the savior directly. Even nobles would be charged with disrespect for facing the savior directly, so it was just as well. In other words, the upcoming party would be their first meeting. She never thought much of it before, but looking again, her face really did scream villainous. Even if she was upset about the broken engagement, to think she managed to harass someone despite not even being that pretty was weird. Come to think of it, her past self could sense spirits. She had never actually seen any spirits in this world, so she thought that sense might be gone now. She was glad that she couldn't see anything because it would be a real pain. She called for the maid and asked her to bring her the key to the archives. For now, she at least wanted to avoid the crime of disrespect, so she needed to know exactly what it entailed. It only said the king decides the severity of the crime based on the situation. So basically, she could be executed depending on the king's mood. She was then informed that Prince Elliot had arrived. She told the maid to let him in. Prince Elliot had hair like melted gold, eyes of emerald, and a beauty as if drawn in a painting. No matter how many times she saw him, he stole her gaze. She thought this even when they got engaged, but now that she remembers her past life, even more so. She wondered if it would be okay for a little devilish lady like her to be his fiancé. Prince Elliot asked if she had time later today. She apologized and explained that she was going to focus on princess education today. He said he would be happy if she could make time again sometime and leave the room. If the condemnation event was about to begin, even if they were together, it only made her feel emptier. 3 days later, the engagement party of the Savior and the Knight Commander was held. Iris and Elliot arrived at the party even though Iris didn't want to get involved with the Savior. Prince Elliot noticed her necklace. It was a gift from him, so he was happy that she wore it. It was an emerald necklace, the same color as Lord Elliot's eyes. When she first received it, she was so happy she couldn't sleep. But now it felt like he was trying to show off their closeness, and it was weighing on her. Since the other princesses called for her, Prince Elliot left her with them, and she greeted everyone. They complimented how she and Prince Elliot looked so lovely together and how they couldn't wait for the wedding. When she turned her back, Lady Anna was staring at them. The ladies started talking about how her engagement to Prince Henry was called off, but it wasn't something that they could change because Prince Henry's health came first. Under normal circumstances, Lady Anna might have become the queen, but if things stay as they were, most likely, the next king would be Prince Elliot. As they were talking, Commander Linus and Lady Elena arrived. They thanked everyone for attending their engagement party today. Linus, as the Knight Commander, vowed to support her and continue moving forward with strength. They hoped they all would continue to watch over them for many years to come. That was the first time Iris saw Elena. Saviors were brought into the Holy Church because of their abilities, so she was apparently a commoner to begin with. The magical power they were born with cannot be used without magical tools developed by the Church, and even when used, it shortens their lifespan. For that reason, mages were typically orphans with high magical power. Despite the dangers and short lifespan, they were often deployed to the front lines in war. Because of the generous pay, there were surprisingly many applicants. The Savior, born only once every few hundred years, possesses a rare ability to restore magical energy. With a Savior present, mages could use magic without shortening their lives, making them an irreplaceable resource. If she didn't greet them, she couldn't leave the place, so she had no choice. Commander Linus greeted Lady Iris first and introduced himself and his fiancée. Since it was just a greeting, Iris thought it would be fine, and she thanked them for the invitation. Prince Elliot told Elena that if Linus ever treated her badly, she could let him know, and she would punish him under the name of the second prince of the Kingdom of Callum. Elena seemed panicked and said Lord Linus had been nothing but kind to her. Iris looked at both of them and said they really made a lovely couple. She really hoped they would be happy. Iris noticed that there were fireflies around Lady Elena. But there shouldn't be any fireflies in this world. It was a green light. Right before she told Lord Elliot, the light seemed like it was going to harm Elena, so she pushed her to protect her, and then the light started coming their way. It was pretty obvious that she wouldn't be able to dodge it. Right before it hit her, the light vanished. Worried, Prince Elliot called for Iris. She couldn't stand straight and felt something inside her. As Prince Elliot tried to wake her up, she lost consciousness. When she opened her eyes, she was lying in a bed and Prince Elliot was right next to her. He seemed relieved that she was okay. She asked what had happened to her, but then remembered what had happened and asked what had happened to Lady Elena and if she was all right. Lord Elliot seemed nervous. He asked her to tell him what happened. She said she wasn't sure what that green swarm was, and she didn't know why it attacked Lady Elena or why it suddenly vanished either. She thought maybe he would know. He said he wasn't saying he doubted her words, but he didn't see anything at all. But she was certain she did. She was confused as to what on earth that was. He wasn't sure, but it might be the power of perception from the legends. It was said to be the power to see the flow of magic. She probably saw the defensive spell of the court mage captain who was guarding Lady Elena. She was completely convinced that it was going to hurt her. Besides, she didn't want such useless special power. Prince Elliot told her to calm down and listen to him. It was hard to say, but to everyone else it looked like she suddenly shoved Lady Elena. It was a misunderstanding and he stepped in right away to smooth things over. But some of the more stiff-necked nobles were starting to make a fuss, and things were getting a little dicey. She could understand that if they couldn't see that green cluster, it would just look like she had suddenly pushed her. Iris apologized for causing trouble and said she would be fine. She asked what happened. Prince was a bit uneasy to tell her first, but then had to explain that voices were saying she should be charged with lèse-majesté. They were also demanding that she break off the engagement with him. The Crown Prince's faction was jumping on the opportunity like it was a blessing. But he said it was okay because as long as he could tell him the power of perception, it would be fine. Iris couldn't help but wonder why. That was the one thing she absolutely wanted to avoid, and now she was going to be accused of lèse-majesté over something like this. She felt like she was unable to do anything. But in the game, Iris was rejected from her engagement, and as a result of committing various misdeeds, she was charged with lèse-majesté and executed. But now the story was unfolding while they were still engaged, and she wondered if the plot was diverging from the game. Still, the engagement breaking seemed to remain a branching point, which meant that she could go ahead and break off the engagement and save herself from getting executed. Right now, she had no intention of causing trouble after being dumped, and she had had fewer chances to run into the savior too. This whole lèse-majesté thing would probably blow over too. In other words, she could survive. This was her actual chance, and she just had to break off the engagement before she was condemned. She suddenly told Elliot that she accepted the annulment of their engagement. Prince was shocked. She explained that she had been thinking this for quite some time, and it might be that she wasn't suitable to be Lord Elliot's partner. And in fact, she caused trouble today as well. Even that power of perception was more than she deserved. It was true, she had always wondered if she was the right one, and this was a good opportunity for Lord Elliot as well. While she was talking, he asked what she was talking about. He promised her that he wouldn't let it be treated as treason, and there was no need to worry about that. She tried to talk, but he said it was okay and that his fiancée was Iris. Lord Elliot was a kind person. She realized that she couldn't cast aside the feelings of someone who chose her and didn't insist on this issue again. She wondered if she could break off the engagement before being condemned. Several days passed after that, and her days of bridal education resumed. Thanks to Lord Elliot's intervention, the charges of disrespect were temporarily dismissed. After that party, she asked to meet the savior to apologize, but she was turned down. What she saw, just as Lord Elliot had guessed, seemed to have been the defense magic of the head magician. She tried looking into this power to perceive. Lord Elliot told her that it was a very special ability. He warned her beforehand that what he was about to tell her involved state secrets. The power of perception was said to have once appeared in those of royal blood and had long been considered a sacred gift. As she already knew, without a savior, they would likely use up their entire lifespan and die. And that's why it had been kept secret to protect the royal family. No one seemed to know the full details. There were three main things the power to perceive could do. First was the ability to see the flow of magical energy. Second was to touch visible magical energy and absorb it. And the last one was that you could use the absorbed magic yourself or grant it to others. At the party, Iris collapsed because she instinctively absorbed the defensive magic. At least that was what he thought. Iris was shocked because she was relieved. She didn't have any spiritual sensitivity, but now she had this ridiculously overpowered ability. At this rate, having spiritual sensitivity would be better. When she could see it, it would be impossible not to get distracted by it. She nearly got charged with lèse-majesté because of it. It was true that thanks to it, there was now a chance she might survive. Prince Elliot said magical tools also have magical power in them. She kind of got that it was an amazing power, but she had barely even seen magic before, so it didn't feel real to her. If she could use this power to avoid a judgment event, that would be great. This time it was entirely thanks to Lord Elliot. She didn't want to trouble him again. She wondered if she could break off the engagement in a situation like this. She thought about it for a moment and decided not to give up, because once she was dead, everything was over. She wanted to survive no matter what, and she didn't want to give up. Iris would be condemned for having harassed the savior. She thought exile would be better than death, but most foreign countries were poor and in ruins. The neighboring country, Arya, had poor security and frequent terrorism. It seemed that even slavery still strongly persists there, which means being sent to a convent might be the most realistic option. She didn't dislike children, so she could probably take care of orphans and live peacefully. She wrote down her choices and reminded herself that she was going to survive no matter what. She decided to think about the power to perceive when the time came because there was nothing she could do about it now anyway. She just hoped it would somehow help her avoid being condemned. A letter had arrived from Prince Elliot suddenly. She was surprised because he usually comes in person. When she opened the letter, she saw that it was an invitation to a tea party from Her Majesty, the Queen. The maid was pretty excited and suggested starting to prepare right away. However, Iris wasn't that excited. She recalled the time when she played on her phone and what happened at that event. The sorrowful voice echoed in her mind. That pained and yet still, a gaze laced with contempt. And Prince Elliot said she was the one who killed his mother. The reason she was condemned in the game was partly for insulting the savior and being charged with disrespect, but the one standing at the end of that cold, piercing glare was she, Iris, who was also accused of murdering the queen. In the next scene, Iris kindly stated that it was an honor to have been invited today. The queen of the Callum Kingdom, Cornelius, was glad she came and told her to enjoy herself today. Even with age, the queen retained her noble beauty, and she was admired by women all over the kingdom. Because of her beauty, the tea gathering for the day was called the Lily Society, and the event that led to the queen's murder accusation was taking place today. Queen asked how her health had been lately. She responded that she had been continuing her studies as usual. Queen was glad to see her looking well, but warned her not to overdo it. Lady Anna joined the conversation, saying she was much better at studying. Lord Henry had fallen ill again, and within the castle, momentum was growing to name Lord Elliot as Crown Prince in earnest. It seemed that what shocked Lady Anna most was not becoming the Crown Princess. Lady Anna greeted Lord Elliot and said he looked so splendid again today, and she was happy to be seated with him. She asked him to take a walk with her in the garden later. Iris wasn't surprised because if she were engaged to Lord Elliot, she would become the Crown Princess after all. It was bold of her, but still good for her. Iris didn't know what might trigger the condemnation event, so if she was going to leave, now was the time. Before she could excuse herself, the queen had the maids slice the cake Iris brought and wanted to eat together. She decided to excuse herself once she was done eating and went home. She then saw a magical green light again, but somehow it seemed different from usual. Suddenly, the light went inside the cake queen was about to eat, so she quickly threw her fork. Apparently, there was poison in the cake, and she was equally shocked. But since it was the cake she brought, it seemed obvious. It was true that she brought the cake, but she would never do such a thing. She said it wasn't her. Lord Elliot stepped up and explained the problem with the cake she brought. The other dishes were unaffected, so the poison wasn't in the cake itself. The cake wasn't even sliced yet, and it would have been impossible for Iris to poison it. The queen agreed with Lord Elliot and mentioned that there was no discoloration when it was brought out either. She told Jill, the butler, to report this immediately to the Knight Commander and the Chief Mage for investigation. Lord Elliot told everyone not to touch anything here until they arrived and no speak of this to anyone else. In the next scene, Knight Commander Linus Marvel and Chief Mage Zebel Isaac called Lord Elliot and Lady Iris. Elliot asked why he called Iris as well because the issue yesterday wasn't caused by the cake. Zebel was certain that Lady Iris was not the culprit. However, at present, they had no leads besides the cake, so he thought it would be helpful to hear her side of the story. Iris wouldn't mind it because it was for the sake of solving this case, and she promised to cooperate as much as she could. They asked how the cake was delivered. She said she had a maid carry it, and after informing the queen, she handed it over to the palace maid. He asked if there was something unusual. The cause was probably that darkened green light, but to explain it, she would have to talk about her power of perception. She looked at Lord Elliot and he nodded to her as if he had just read her mind. She explained that her power of perception awakened, and she saw magical power being infused into the cake. Zebel was shocked and thought he was imagining things. Linus asked if she meant the magic was infused into it. She said that was how it looked to her, and she didn't know what it really was. But unlike usual, the magic she saw yesterday was a dark, murky color. She had a bad feeling and immediately turned to the queen. Zebel said it might be a type of curse magic. It was one of the forbidden types of magic. As the name implied, it was magic that cast a curse. But if the target was known, it could be activated even from a distance. So that means one of the mages was the culprit. Normally that would be the case. However, in fact, rumors were spreading abroad about a way to use magic without magical tools. It was still under investigation, but if it was true, identifying the culprit would become much more difficult. That was true. Magical tools used for large-scale magic, which they called sorcery, were basically only granted to magic users. However, magical power itself was something everyone possessed, so if those rumors were true, that would mean anyone could have poisoned it. Lord Elliot asked if the rumors were only spreading abroad. Only a few people near the border had heard about it. He then asked if the list of people who entered and exited the castle yesterday had been checked. He responded that they could check the registry immediately. Only the two ducal families and those who entered the castle should know about yesterday's tea party. He ordered them to identify who entered the castle yesterday and prioritize those with strong foreign ties, and compile a list. He then told Zebel to continue gathering information about the rumors from abroad. It looked like things would work out somehow. Even so, this time was really dangerous. Just being suspected of trying to kill the queen was already a serious crime. If she didn't have this power, who knew what would have happened? Lord Elliot turned to her and asked her to patrol the castle grounds with guards assisting her. He wanted her to use her power to check for any unusual magical activity. She figured that seeing magic as black might be that malice or some other factor changed the nature of the magic itself. He didn't want to push her too hard, but she needed her power. Thanks to her, the investigation had progressed. She said it was only because of her wise leadership. When Lord Elliot said his mother's life was saved thanks to her, she recalled the game and was shocked. By gaining this power, she avoided the charge of assassinating the queen, and even got through the charge of disrespect once. She realized that she might be able to avoid execution with this power, and said she would support him to the best of her ability. Ever since she regained the memories of her previous life, problems had been arising one after another, without pause, ever since the manifestation of the power of perception. Today, her duty to patrol begins. She greeted Gil, the second prince's personal guard knight, and he greeted her back. It was very reassuring to have Gil as a bodyguard, but she wondered if it was right for him to be away from Prince Elliot's side. Gil responded that it was by Prince Elliot's orders, so there was no issue. He wasn't planning to leave his office today, so there wouldn't be a problem. If it were known that he let her go alone, he would be the one scolded instead. Iris was reassured, so she said she would be in his care for today. As they started walking around the garden, Iris wondered if he was aware of the power of perception. Apparently, Prince Elliot told him about it. The other day, Lord Ober seemed to already know about it. It was a state secret, but he heard that the head of the Mage Corps was informed in case of emergencies. Originally, Captain Ober should have been the one providing protection, but he was currently tied up with other duties. She asked if they weren't continuing the investigation without making the incident public. He responded that the king and the chancellor seemed fully occupied with matters concerning the savior. Originally, the savior was someone protected by the Holy Church, who devoted their entire life to the nation, offering their loyalty to God. But when the previous bishop passed away and a new bishop took over, the dark rumors about the church became endless. This time it was decided that the Knight Order would handle the protection. Because of that, relations between the Holy Church and the Knight Order became strained. It seemed the church kept spreading rumors that the savior had been kidnapped, and they continued to monopolize magical tools. Iris didn't think it was related to this current event, but she would never know. Looking again, there really were quite a lot of magical tools being used throughout the castle. They arrived at the training ground for mages, and Gil asked if she would like to have a look. Come to think of it, she hasn't actually seen proper magic before, so she was curious. She said she would like to observe if they weren't in the way. When they entered, everyone bowed down for her. She apologized for interrupting and said they were just here to observe for a bit. As they continued training, she looked to see if there were any strange lights, but there weren't any. He apologized for suddenly intruding, and Lord Abel said it boosted the morale of the mages. Someone came looking for Lord Abel, and it was Lady Elena. She assisted with the training of the Mage Corps. Now that she had the chance, Iris sincerely apologized for what had happened last time. Panicked, Elena told her to look up because she had even sent her a letter, and there was nothing to be worried about. She asked if she was feeling better now, and Iris said she was completely fine now. She had been strolling to relax a little. Someone yelled to watch out, and when they turned to their left, they saw a huge fireball coming right at them. Iris and Elena fell to the ground, and Iris questioned if it had happened again. The magic disappeared right before it hit his iris, so the other seemed suspicious. Lord Abel asked if she was alright and was glad his barrier made it in time. She said she was alright and thanked him. However, her dress got dirty, so Gil asked if they should head back for now. Lord Abel agreed and escorted them. He told Elena to take care of everyone's recovery. It was dangerous to use her power like that, but thanks to that she was saved. Lord Abel asked what magic felt like, and she said there was a tingling feeling around her stomach, and it might be because it was someone else's magic. He responded that it might also be because she wasn't used to absorbing magic yet. Since no one comes around here, he suggested trying to release it as a test. Before that, he asked for her hand. He gave her something His Highness requested. It supported her power to perceive, so she must keep it close to her skin if possible. Now that this was settled, he asked her to try to imagine releasing the magic she received earlier toward the ground. She said she would give it a try and started focusing. She put her hands towards the ground and released a giant amount of fire. Before any big fire happened, Lord Abel stopped it with a water splash. He said they would have to report this to the king. In the next scene, Lady Iris told Lord Elliot what happened in the training grounds to Lord Elliot. After that incident, they immediately went to report to Lord Elliot. He asked Lord Abel if the power of perception could really do something like that. He responded that absorbed magic could only be released as is, and other magical energy was likely absorbed along with it, so that's why the power increased. He asked if she was okay, and she said she had felt fine ever since she released the magic power. Even if she had the power to perceive, absorbing magic still places a burden on her body. Absorption and bestowal both use Lady Iris's own magic. If she were with Lady Elena, it was one thing, but she should choose more carefully when to use her power. Iris asked if there were things that only the power of perception could accomplish. Besides, using it would make it easier to catch the culprit who targeted the queen. She had finally found a way to avoid condemnation and there was no reason not to use this power. Lord Abel asked if they should also stop the patrol. Iris told him that if it were her, she would be fine. But Lord Elliot said he couldn't let her continue if there was even a chance she might be in danger. She couldn't say no to this romantic and caring guy. Lord Abel cleared his throat to let them know that he was still here. He said that if they both are okay with it, continuing the patrol should be fine because just looking didn't deplete magical power. However, as far as the king was concerned, a situation where they had no choice but to use power might indeed arise, and with that he suggested undergoing training to control her power. With that single suggestion, things moved forward quickly. A direct magical training season under Lord Abel began. Since it was a power needed to avoid execution, it would be better for her to use magic. Lord Abel explained that magic had 6 attributes, and generally one person had one attribute. However, there were rare cases of people who possessed multiple attributes. Lady Elena could use wind and light, and he could use all attributes. Lady Iris originally had the earth attribute, but the power of perception could be used regardless of magical attribute. So basically, she had all the magical attributes. He said he was going to cast some magic first and promised that he wouldn't use any strong spells at the start. He created a small water ball and sent it to her. First, she holds her hands out toward the magic. She imagined absorbing it and managed to do it, but she wasn't really used to this sensation. The next step was to imagine releasing it into the ground. When she focused, she could release the same amount of water magic, but the water ball dropped and made her clothes wet. She apologized, saying the impression from last time was still strong. The water ball had weak power, so he let his guard down. It was true that until now, the power just flowed out naturally, but she was dedicated to mastering it perfectly and showing him. Lord Abel called for her, and with one finger snap, her clothes changed into something more comfortable, and she wasn't wet anymore. He thanked her for waiting and told her to try the wind next. And the training continued afterwards. After a few days had passed, she started being able to sense the magic being sent to her. Lord Abel was really using all kinds of magic on her. She had gotten quite used to it now. Having grown used to absorbing, she also began training in imbuing. The bracelet she bought earlier was for this imbuing purpose. Apparently, it could store supplies for emergencies. If done correctly, the color of the magic stone changes, so it was easy to tell. Lord Abel suggested starting training to use the stored magic from now on. There was one thing she realized through training. This person always teaches kindly and politely, but he was unbelievably Spartan. He told her to make sure she could do everything within 1 second. Iris was pretty worn out, so she asked him to go easy on her. And so, as a result of continuing that training, she truly became able to store 10 units of magic from each element. Hopefully, this would allow him to avoid the judgment event. A lot had happened after that, but the patrols continued. Today, she was on patrol duty with Lord Elliot and saw a black-haired man. Lord Elliot asked if something was wrong. Before she could answer, the black-haired man walked past them, and she asked if that was the bishop's son. His name was Lord Jade. He was seriously inspecting the inside, so she was curious. Lord Elliot asked if they should go in and check it out. Inside the room, the new bishop welcomed Lord Elliot. He asked if he had some business with the church. Lord Elliot mentioned how he heard the castle's chapel would be used as a wedding venue, and they just came by to take a look while out on a stroll. As they talked, Iris looked carefully and figured that he didn't look like someone surrounded by all those dark rumors. But Lord Elliot's face said otherwise. When she asked, he said it was nothing. He asked if she saw anything, and she said she was struck by how many magical tools there were. While she was about to say that she had never seen a big magic stone, she noticed the dark light, and the magic stone broke into pieces without even touching it. An earthquake started happening, so Lord Elliot hugged Iris to protect her from getting hurt. While trying to protect her, he didn't notice the candle holder that was about to hit him in the head. But before it could hit, the barrier protected Elliot. When the shaking stopped, they were still confused. She said just before the tremor, the magic stone turned black, which means it might be due to someone's magic. But she couldn't think of anyone who would do this. She then remembered the bishop and Lady Elena. They went to the room and both of them seemed very calm. Bishop asked if something had happened for them to be in such a hurry. She said there was a strong tremor just now and asked if they were all right over there. But they didn't feel anything. Confused, she started questioning what this meant. She asked Lady Elena if she didn't feel anything, and she seemed pretty uneasy and nervous. After making eye contact with the bishop, she said she didn't feel anything either. Lord Elliot already sensed what was going on, so he acted cool and said women tend to be more sensitive to those things and apologized. He said they had taken up too much of their time and left the room with Iris. After leaving there, he said he would have the Mage Corps look into the magic stone and apologized for not being able to see her off properly. But he stopped her and hugged her really tightly. Iris was shocked. Lord Elliot said he was glad she was safe and thanked her for helping him. She said she should be the one thanking him, but he didn't let her. He said he would come see her again because today ended up like this. Even so, Iris wondered what that tremor was. The fact that only they felt made her curious about the magic stone turning black, and they still didn't have a clue who the poisoner was. While walking, she wished to have some kind of clue. She looked around and saw a dense forest so overgrown with greenery that it had no paths. They say approaching it makes them ill, so no one ever entered. That was the forest of magic. She noticed that something inside the forest was reflecting light. She then realized that there was also a route where Iris escaped into the forest and sought revenge. It was perfect for hiding, but she wondered how in a forest that's supposed to be empty, and even though she entered the forest, she didn't get sick. She started to question if something could be inside the forest. She thought she might find some clues. She decided she would do whatever it takes to survive, and if there was even a chance, she had to try. There was no solid proof, but if her intuition was correct, she understood why the division couldn't act carelessly. She went to Lord Abel and said she didn't mean to go into the forest alone. Lord Abel scolded her for wanting to go to the southern forest. He reminded her that she was the Duke's daughter and the fiancée of the second prince. The Demon Forest was a 3-hour ride from the castle, and she didn't want to turn this into something serious. She tried talking to Lord Abel, but it didn't seem like a good idea now. He asked why she was suddenly interested in the southern forest because, as she also knew, no one willingly approached that forest. She understood that and said the other day she saw something glowing inside the forest. The knights who were with her didn't react, so she assumed it was a light related to magical power. He seemed interested and said that if she saw it, then it definitely warrants investigation. She was excited, but Lord Abel said he would dispatch members of the division. He mentioned that there would also be an engagement announcement party in 1 week. The proper preparations would also begin, so it would be good for the main person to be absent. This party would double as an occasion for an important announcement. Iris said she would have to postpone the party. Shocked, Lord Abel asked what she meant. She said that until the culprit who targeted the queen was caught, she thought they should postpone it. They didn't even know if the culprit had given up. She thought inviting a large crowd into the castle was dangerous. Besides, she hasn't given up on canceling the engagement yet. If they go ahead with the party, there is no turning back. Lord Abel asked her to reconsider because the security measures had been thoroughly prepared with Linus. There was no way any harm would come to the royal family. Iris told him that he should know that too. To investigate a high-ranking noble, solid evidence was required. Lord Abel didn't know that she noticed it until now. She didn't have solid proof, but if her intuition was right, she could understand why the order couldn't move recklessly. Most likely the culprit was the Duke Violet family. The Violet family, which actively engages in trade with other countries, could easily obtain information unknown to them. Originally, it was supposed to be the family of the next queen. Someone like her was probably just in the way. The reason they targeted the queen was probably because she encouraged Prince Henry to give up the throne, but she wasn't sure if Miss Anna was directly involved. That was just a working theory. From what she saw at the tea party, Lady Anna seemed to have a favorable view of both Sir Elliot and the Queen. Lord Auble said it was true they couldn't act without evidence, but it was their job to carry out that investigation. What she should have done now was to support the king by his side. He reminded her once again that she was not allowed to go into the forest. After she met Lord Auble, Iris realized that she had no choice but to sneak out. She would have preferred to get permission. She had gotten used to using magic, so it shouldn't become a big problem. Besides, there was something else she remembered. The magic one was born with was just like blood. It was an essential energy for living. If it was lacking, it affected your health, but as long as you live normally, there is no problem, because you could absorb the magic particles in the air to recover. Originally, the forest should have been a place richer in magic particles than the village. Recovery in nature literally meant recovering magic particles. It was said that approaching the forest of magic would make you feel ill. She was sure that there was something there. But there was just one thing that bothered her. If that was the case, she wondered where the rumor about shortening your lifespan came from. Even in the game, she didn't think anyone died from their lifespan running out. She only heard rumors about lifespans being shortened, but the truth may be something else. As she was about to sneak out, Lord Auble caught her. She tried to explain herself, but almost admitted that she was planning to go to the forest alone. Lord Auble now fully understood how stubborn she could be. He said he would accompany her if she absolutely must go. She asked if he was sure, and he said he wasn't, but he would be more worried if she went alone. If something happened to her, he could never apologize enough to Prince Elliot, even in death. However, when she returned, the party would not be postponed, and he asked her to promise him she would definitely attend. She would rather avoid both options. She asked what would happen if she didn't promise. He responded that he would place a barrier over the entire castle until the party. If she explained the reason, Lord Elliot might approve. That would mean being confined to the castle for a whole week. She had no choice but to promise him. He said they would be riding on horseback if they had to hurry. She may be able to go to the forest now, but she couldn't avoid the party anymore. She wasn't sure if this was the right decision. In the next scene, they arrived at the magic forest, and Lord Auble told her not to leave his side. Just as the rumors said, it had an ominous atmosphere. Since no one came near, there weren't even proper paths. She then noticed Lord Auble that she saw a path there. It seemed to continue deeper in. All he could see were the forest trees, so it must have been an illusion spell. Without Lady Iris's power, he wouldn't have noticed it. He asked if this was where the path begins. The light disappeared, and the illusion spells lost their effect when they were broken, which means this path was intentionally hidden by someone. She said she was fine and asked to move forward. At the end of the path, there was a temple-like stone. She approached it to figure it out, but before she touched it, Lord Auble said a barrier had been deployed. She wondered why something like this would be in the forest. Lord Auble said a concealment magic circle had been deployed. Its magic used to conceal something behind that barrier, and the earlier illusion was part of it. And what's hidden beneath multiple layers of barriers was a magic circle that absorbed mana. The reason people feel unwell when approaching the forest was probably because of this. For some reason, the Kingdom of Calmy had less mana generation than other countries. They had been investigating this with the division and the research lab. There was one more thing that bothered him. The stone monument inside had the barrier bearing the crest of the Arya royal family. He wondered what this could mean. Relations with the neighboring country, Arya, had been strained for generations ago, and remnants of that hostility remained. If this place were built to weaken Calm's military power, it would be bad. He wondered if there was really nothing they could do about this. It was hard to say whether this was something harmful or not. Releasing the barrier without knowing could be dangerous. It was too early to draw any conclusions now. For now, he suggested reporting this to the king. In the meantime, he would conceal this place with illusion magic. If the Kingdom of Arya really built this place, she wondered when they did it and what their purpose was. If this barrier weren't there, they could exterminate it more closely. Now that she thought about it, the magic power here wasn't black. Even the barrier had a calm color. If it was magic meant to conceal something, then maybe it just vanished like an illusion. The moment she touched the barrier, it exploded. She apologized to Lord Auble and said there was no ominous feeling, so she thought just a little would be fine. The barrier itself was meant to conceal this place after all. So far, it seemed there were no problems with lifting the barrier. She asked if they should investigate a bit more before heading back. When she turned her back, she saw the black light again. Lord Auble also saw it and said it probably meant the magic had already been activated. They couldn't catch up on that speech, and he decided to contact the unit for now. He was curious about where it flew off to as well. If something happens again, it would be troublesome, so they need to investigate it properly. The barrier had been completely broken, and it seemed the magic element absorption circle was also deactivated. But there were no abnormalities. Iris asked if it was okay to approach the tower now. He said it should be fine. They approached it together and there was nothing unusual. Up close, something fell off. She said it might be just her imagination, but the monument was slightly off-center. She was sure the tower was in the center just before. It looked like the spot they were on was actually the center, which means it might be movable. He asked if she could see the light of the magic power and she said no. Then it might come down to brute force. This is usually when Linus comes in handy. He took out his jacket and said he would look a bit clumsy. She said she would help him, but he said this was nothing. When he moved the tower, they discovered a hole under it. It seemed they moved it to hide this hole. She wondered what kind of hole this was, but Lord Albel wasn't sure about it. But there was a handrail along the wall and it looked like they could climb down. While he was saying how they didn't know the scale ahead from here, Lady Iris wanted to investigate. He had figured she would say that, so he snapped his finger and reinforced the protective magic. He was going to go down first and told her to follow him carefully. When they finished going down, there wasn't much light coming in, so they couldn't see what was there. Lord Albel used his power and lit the place. It seemed to continue quite far inside. The sun was about to set, so he said they should leave the rest to the knights and head back. But Iris said if they returned now, the sun would set, and if there were more illusion spells, she would be the only one who could see through them, so she decided to go just a bit further. As they walked inside, there was nothing here. There were traces here and there of human activity, but they seemed to be from a long time ago. She thought a monster would appear, so this was a bit anticlimactic. Not that she would want that to happen. She suddenly felt the wind, so Lord Albel thought the exit might be nearby. It looked like it could be open from the inside too, but they couldn't tell what was outside from here. Lord Albel said he would go check and told her to wait. He took out a box and explained that it was something like a communication device. It was still in the prototype stage though. If she channeled magic into it and spoke, he would be able to hear her. However, he couldn't reply from his side. He told her to use it if anything happens. As expected, that was exhausting. She came to the forest lightly, thinking there might be a hint for survival. But she found a magic circle that absorbed mana with the crest of the Arlia royal family. This had become a bigger deal than she expected. On top of that, there was the wedding announcement party when they returned. With the exhaustion piling up, she started to feel down. In this situation, she wasn't sure if she could really avoid execution properly. She recalled the day when she was crying, and Lord Elliot asked her what had happened. She was looking for her father but couldn't find her. He said he would help her search for him. He asked his name and that was how they met. When she opened her eyes, she saw Lord Albel. He had returned quickly. Above, they were still inside the forest and it didn't seem to threaten them anymore, so they could head back to the castle. He said he knew she was tired, but he asked her to hang in there a little longer. She said she was fine and there was no problem. While they were climbing up, she realized that she might be more anxious than she thought because she hadn't been able to break off the engagement. She had a nostalgic dream from when she first went to greet them at the castle and got lost. The day she first met Lord Elliot. When he said that she was his only fiancée, it made her really happy. But to escape execution, she still had to break up with him. As she lost her focus and fell to the ground, she felt something was caught on. There was a person there, and it was Prince Henry. He looked like Prince Henry, but he seemed to be a body double. At least it was a relief that it wasn't the prince himself. She wondered why Prince Henry's body double would be here. She said she wondered if he was safe. But Lord Albel didn't know about it either. The horses that used to come to the forest came to them, and when they looked behind they saw a huge fire. Lord Albel figured that something had happened at the castle and carried her in his arms to speed up a bit. On their way to the castle, Iris was worried about Lord Elliot. When they arrived, she wondered if Lord Elliot was in his room. The butler apologized to her and said they couldn't let anyone through due to an emergency. She asked if something had happened, and he seemed surprised that she hadn't heard. She was confused because there shouldn't have been any such incident at this time. Lord Albel asked if he could tell them if he wasn't forbidden from talking about it. He asked if it was related to the gate guards being found collapsing. Right before he told them, Lord Elliot came out of his room and said he was glad she was safe. She said she heard there was an emergency and asked if he was all right. He thanked her for worrying about him and said he was fine. He invited her inside to explain things himself and sent Lord Obe out. Lord Albel said he would leave the explanation of this matter to Lady Iris, and said he also needed to make an urgent report to the king. Before he left, Lord Albel said she must be tired and gave her something to mix with tea to help her relieve her fatigue. Lord Elliot was staring at him, so he took his leave and left. The moment they went inside, Lord Elliot hugged her so tightly that she was even more worried now. He said he was glad she was safe and apologized for making her worry. He never imagined the forest would catch fire. Iris was shocked. Lord Elliot said they had a lot to talk about and told her to tell him everything. Iris had no choice but to tell the truth. When Iris told him what happened, he summarized it as 1 week before the engagement announcement parts, the Duke's daughter slipped out in secret, pushing through opposition, and went to the Forest of Demons without an escort. Iris couldn't oppose this at all. He said he understood that someone as serious as her would worry, but he had to ask her not to do anything reckless, because if anything happened to her, he wouldn't be able to bear it. Iris apologized for this. On the other hand, he said they would send an investigation team to see the magic circle that absorbed mana, along with Arya's crest and the hidden cave. On top of that, he was puzzled about his brother's body double. He said he should tell her what happened here as well, and told her not to be too shocked. He informed her that Prince Henry had gone missing. His brother's condition wasn't good, and he could only assume he was taken away. And also, taking advantage of her absence, some nobles from the Crown Prince's faction started claiming it was her doing. Lord Henry was missing. With a fire of that scale, an investigation team would surely be formed. From the remaining accessories, they would quickly realize it was Lord Henry's body double. If Lord Henry is not found soon, she will be suspected of murdering Lord Henry. Even though she managed to avoid the Queen's assassination route, these kinds of accusations didn't let her relax. Prince Henry held her hand and reassured her that he wouldn't let that happen. He apologized for startling her and comforted her that the situation itself hadn't blown up yet, even if it was serious. Though the factional nobles did make a fuss, there was no evidence. There was no need to make her worry, and yet he lacked consideration. Iris thanked him for telling her. She was the one who acted strangely and lost composure, so she was sorry for that. Lord Elliot assumed she must be tired after just getting back, and said she should rest for today. She was going to say no, but then she started getting sleepy. Her head dropped on his shoulder and she couldn't keep her eyes open. Lord Elliot told her that it was fine and wished her good night. When she opened her eyes, her head felt clear and her body felt light too. She wondered if that thing Lord Obel gave her worked. She also didn't know when she ended up in bed because she was pretty sure she was in the middle of talking with Lord Elliot. She recalled the moment he wished her good night and felt really embarrassed. Lord Elliot came and asked if she had slept well. Since he was also here, she wondered if something had happened. He apologized for bringing her to his room since it was closer than hers, and comforted her that he slept in the room next door. She apologized and said she must have caused him so much trouble. He told her that it wasn't her fault and she didn't need to worry. He mentioned that he had the maid change her clothes. After she passed out in front of Lord Elliot, she even used his room and changed clothes, so she was very ashamed of herself. Lord Elliot then informed them that Commander Obel was here, and he told them to let him in. Lord Obel greeted Lady Iris and apologized for visiting so early. Lord Elliot asked Obel why he gave her a sleeping drug and told him to explain himself. Iris was shocked and figured he had mixed it into the tea. After reporting to the king, he went to assess the situation in the castle and captured the person who set fire to the forest. They had a very curious princess here, so he used the drug just in case. Iris was so angry, but she knew he was right. Lord Elliot asked if he had found the person who deceived his brother. They interrogated the arsonist, but they wouldn't talk, and they suspect Prince Henry may be held somewhere. Prince Elliot asked if it was the Violet family, and Lord Obel wasn't sure. It seemed there was foreign involvement behind the arsonist. There weren't many families in their country that actively engaged with foreign nations, and the suspicion of attempted assassination of the Queen still hadn't been cleared. However, the Duke of Violet had an alibi. It was like cutting off the lizard's tail. Gathering evidence was proving difficult. One of the maids in charge of serving at the tea party was murdered last night, and it was most likely to silence her. The troubling part was that they didn't know how deeply which nation was involved. They just hope this won't lead to a war. Iris wanted to ask something about Lord Obel. She asked if there was a problem with the tower in the forest or the magic circle. If the magical element suddenly increased, it would cause an anomaly. Lord Obel responded that the circle didn't store magical energy, so it was fine. Looking at the cave, the magic circle seemed to have been drawn a long time ago, so he wondered how it could still be active for so long. Most likely that circle converted the absorbed magical elements into magic power and used it as an energy source. So now that the circle had been deactivated, it had simply returned to its original state, so there was no problem. However, the amount that was drained up until now still needs to be replenished, so he believed it would take several years for it to recover to the same level as other countries. So it would take quite a long time, but this can't be helped. More than that, Lord Obel was concerned about the dark magic that came from the tower. The dark mass of magic that was said to be released toward the castle could be a curse. They haven't had time to investigate thoroughly, but Lord Obel thought so. The problem was they didn't know what kind of curse it was or who it was affecting. More than one person might have been cursed, so both of them should be very careful. Lord Elliot asked if there was a possibility that the maid was killed by the curse. They checked, but no traces indicated she was cursed. Someone interrupted their conversation and informed them that Captain Linus of the Knights was going on a rampage. Lord Obel asked what was going on, but they didn't know. When the members approached him, he suddenly started rampaging like a wild beast. The knights were trying to stop him together, but they couldn't hold him back. He asked where it was, and the guard guided him. Lord Elliot decided to go too, and so did Iris, but he told her to wait here. But she said she was coming too. Prince Elliot told her that Linus was the most powerful knight in their country, and letting her go to where Linus was rampaging was far too dangerous. He promised to take care of it quickly and come back and asked her to wait in the room until then. Iris couldn't say no to that, so she said she would wait. When he left, Iris thought Lord Elliot was worrying too much. She trained in magic for situations like this, so staying behind made it pointless. Come to think of it, she wondered if there was a story where Lord Linus went berserk in the game. The flow of events had really changed compared to the game, so she wasn't sure of what to do. She thought about going and silently opened the door, but Lord Elliot's guards were in front of the door, asking her where she was going. They told her to remain in her room until the prince returned. Iris returned to the room and tried to find something to do. There was a mini-game where you explored the room, and it was to search for the hidden passage. For a long time ago, high-ranking noble families' homes had hidden passages that only members of the household knew about. She didn't know exactly where the hidden passages in the castle were, but it wouldn't be strange if there was one in Lord Elliot's room. She started looking around and checking the furniture. There was no way she would find it that easily, so she kept looking. If it were a hidden passage created with magic, she could find it right away. When she was checking the books, she moved one and ended up finding it. She thought about Lord Elliot before going in, but she felt like she had to do this, so she started walking. The world was painted gray in Prince Elliot's eyes. As the second prince, aside from sleeping, his time was spent either studying or training with the sword. Playing was nothing but a distant dream. Around the time he was completely worn out from all the shallow relationships with people trying to get close to the royal family, he met Iris, a 6-year-old duke's daughter who had come to greet his majesty. Honestly, he didn't want to get close to her. He hadn't expected it, but he saw her walking around in the palace. He wondered why she was here because the audience was scheduled before dinner, and the waiting room should be somewhere else. He then saw her eyes tear up, asking her father where he was. He figured she was lost. But since the royal guards were already looking for her, he didn't feel obligated to help her. However, hearing her crying voice, he couldn't turn a black eye on her. He approached her like a knight, asking if something mattered. He had no idea what he was doing. He knew he shouldn't get involved with the guests before, and yet here he was, even pretending like he was a knight. She asked if he was a knight from the castle, and he couldn't really answer her. She said she was looking for her father. There was a nice smell, so she followed it. If he goes straight from here, he will come to a place full of grass. It was so beautiful that she wanted to tell her father about it, but she got lost. She seemed like she was crying again, so he asked if it would be all right if he helped her look too. She was surprised and asked if he would really help her look for her father. He said he would if she was okay with him, and Iris was so happy. At that moment, Lord Elliot felt like this was the first genuine person he had met. He asked for her name, and she said she was Iris Grey. When she asked for his name, he almost said his real name, but since he wanted to avoid being found out as a prince right now, he said his name was Ariel. She said she knew she was supposed to act more properly. In a noble society, greetings were very important. If you didn't do it properly, you would get scolded. Since she was a duke's daughter, it made sense. He comforted her that it was fine and he wouldn't tell anyone about this. He said this would be a secret between her and him. They promised and continued looking around, but Iris was too distracted by a 4-leaf clover that he figured out how she lost so easily. She picked up the clover and gave it to him. She said it would bring good luck, like happiness and good fortune. She noticed that he always looked like he was in pain and reminded him that what really mattered was the heart that made the wish. She hoped that only good things would come to him from now on. That was his first time receiving a gift not meant for the prince, but for him. It was at that moment his world finally gained color. Iris noticed that his face was pale and asked what was wrong. He said it looked like they left their post to come looking for him. That wasn't good, so Iris started running somewhere. He told him to hurry and they climbed to a tree. The view was so nice and they wouldn't be able to find them here. Lord Elliot was shocked at how he was feeling. He couldn't take his eyes off her. Before he could talk, her father appeared calling for her. Iris was so excited that she lost her balance and they started falling. In this position, Lord Elliot knew he couldn't break the fall. Since she was a protective magic tool, she should be fine with just a few bruises. When they fell, the first thing he thought was if she was okay. After he woke up, he heard that Iris didn't even have a scratch and he felt relieved at the same time. But he also felt sad, thinking he might not be able to see her so easily anymore. For the first time, he used his authority as a prince and asked for the position of her fiancé. Half of him was happy and the other half was anxious about having lied. He wondered if she would forgive him if he honestly apologized. When they met properly, Elliot had to introduce himself as the prince. She thanked him for helping him the other day. He apologized for lying to her and asked if they could go back to how things were before. And he told her that if she didn't want the engagement either, she could refuse it. She said there was no way she could refuse after he helped her. And there were many people better than her. She said he was a wonderful person. but she still had so much to learn. Prince Elliot stated that he wanted her. He wanted Iris, the one who wished him good luck, and if she didn't want to, she could say no. But if she didn't mind, he wanted her, the one who wished him good luck. Iris was surprised and she held his hand without hesitation. She brought color to his gray world. As a royal, this might be the wrong choice, but he wanted to protect her smile forever. Back in the present, Iris was looking for Linus and Prince Elliot and accidentally saw the bishop and Elena. They were talking about an order to return. Iris walked quite a long way inside the path. She wondered where it was continued. When she opened the door, she lost her balance and fell. It was a dark room and she could hear voices. Wondering if anyone was there, she heard Elena telling someone that something was impossible from the start. The bishop responded that now wasn't the time to say things like that. The calm royal family was getting suspicious and starting to move, and they had received orders to return from the homeland. If they mess up now, things wouldn't end well. He told her to leave Linus alone. Iris was shocked. Elena responded that she had feelings for Lord Linus and she couldn't leave this country and abandon him. Bishop asked why she was so attached to that man, and he was just another of those men she seduced with her magic as usual, and there were plenty like him in the homeland. Elena responded that the only one she loved was Lord Linus. The bishop was surprised to see her saying the word love. He reminded her that she was the seductive woman who hunts men, the woman who had trapped countless men in her web, and it was laughable to hear her talk about love now. It seemed like she had started to misunderstand things since being called the savior of the Calm Kingdom, but those were orders. By tomorrow she was ordered to kill Linus and return to the kingdom of Aria. Otherwise, both of them would face nothing but annihilation. Either way, if their lies were exposed, they couldn't remain in this kingdom. Elena said she knew there was no future for her. Even so, Linus still chose her, despite everything. That's why she wanted to stay by his side too. She was thinking of leaving with Linus to a faraway land and wouldn't bring any harm to the homeland. The bishop reminded her that she wanted her parents to stay alive no matter what. He said he didn't know she lived for something called love to this extent and asked if that was beautiful. Iris was shocked and wondered what all of this meant. Lady Elena and the bishop were spies from the kingdom of Aria, and she was a seductive woman who hunted men. She was so shocked that she couldn't keep the door closed and revealed herself. Worried, Elena ran for her. The bishop said he didn't know where she had heard all that, but since they had done this far, this made things easier. If they eliminated the power of knowledge, they would have all the justification they needed. Elena guarded Iris and told the bishop to stop, but he had already decided to erase Iris from existence for his sake. He used inferno magic and aimed to burn them, but Iris stepped in and used her power to counterattack. She pushed the savior away, but now wasn't the time to think about that. The bishop was still comfortable because even if she possessed the power of knowledge, she wouldn't be able to dodge his attacks. It was true that she had never absorbed this type of powerful magic before, but she was the kind who didn't give up easily. Back when she and Lord Abel were training, he told her that the important thing was imagination. Even though the amount of magic and magical tools had an effect, what was truly necessary to unleash real power was to imagine, to strongly imagine what she desired. She reminded herself of the words he told her and managed to withstand the bishop's power. Her body was burning. Even though she was channeling the energy into the bracelet immediately, it felt like she was burning from the inside. The power was too great, and there was no way she could absorb it all. And what was worse, if this continued, her magical energy would run out first. In the case of magical absorption, Iris's magic power was used, but she pushed more and more. Elena touched her back and magical energy started flowing from her to Eurus. She told her that there was no need to worry about magical energy, and she could focus. The bishop was sure that it was useless no matter how much she resisted. She had her bracelet, but the bishop had his ring. One day she asked Lord Abel why the energy was stored in the bracelet, and he said it was because it reduces the burden on her body. It was better not to store absorbed magic if possible. She decided that it wasn't the time to lose now and continued imagining strongly. When it was finally over, Bishop was shocked that he lost. But Iris wasn't in the best condition. Her body was on fire. She felt like she was about to lose control. Bishop saw her weakness and attacked her with a knife. Elena protected her, but he kept attacking them. Iris prayed that Lord Elliot would come and help them. At that moment, the door opened and Lord Abel came with knights to restrain him. Lord Elliot started running towards her in worry, but she couldn't keep her eyes open and fainted. Prince Elliot is called Lord Abel. Shocked, Lord Abel asked what this was. They asked Elena what happened. She said she absorbed the Inferno spell possessed by the bishop and possibly confronted it using the power of knowledge. To use such a spell against a woman was so disgraceful. The magic stone had broken and she probably couldn't complete the spell, so the energy built up inside her. Lord Elliot asked if there was anything they could do, and he said if they could release the buildup magic inside her, she would be fine. But the power needs to be adjusted carefully because it was intense. Lord Elliot said he would do it. Lord Abel called Iris and asked if she would be okay. Seeing Iris's face, he confirmed that she would. They moved to a different location to do it well. They went to the forest and Lord Elliot asked what he intended to do when he said she would control the magic. Lord Obel asked her to adjust the quantity. Instead of releasing it all at once, she needs to release it in small bursts. It was fine to release it the usual way, but she should do it like she was exhaling. He demonstrated how she should do it and told her that the amount of magic used was also massive since the Inferno spell could take out 1,000 people in a single blow, and it would take some time to fully drain it. But no matter what happens, he promised to be there to deal with it and told her to release all the magic without straining herself. She said she would try it and focused. As she exhaled, a small burst came out just as Lord Obel said. They told her to keep that rhythm. She inhaled and exhaled over and over again. Slowly, the heat in her body began to fade, and as the heat that had nearly burned even her thoughts subsided, the voice that dispelled her fear and tension started to echo in her mind, though she wished to break off the engagement just to survive and she knew it would bring her nothing but emptiness. In the end, she still preferred this choice. In the next scene, Iris asked if the bishop said anything. He tried to commit suicide in the middle of the interrogation, so the questioning had to be put on hold. And Prince Henry hadn't been found yet. The situation was still unstable. She asked about Lady Elena, and they informed her that she was also being held in the underground cell. She couldn't be released until things were somewhat clarified. Iris said she saved her and asked if there was anything they could do. Prince Elliot said he understood how she felt, but she was a spy. She admitted that she had the ability to manipulate magical energy distribution, and she deceived everyone using it. This couldn't go unpunished. But Lord Obel said he didn't think Linus would accept that because he might even say he knew all along. If it meant saving Prince Henry or Lady Elena, he wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice his life. That was the kind of man he was. Lord Obel assumed Lord Elliot really trusted him. They had been friends for a long time, and in any case, the news would eventually reach Linus. Only then could they confirm the details. Iris asked where he was now. He was asleep in the clinic. She asked if he was injured. Lord Obel stated that he was the one who knocked him out. He was getting too agitated, so he had no choice. Lord Elliot said he was the one who was cursed by the forest tower. It might be because he was Lady Elena's fiancé he was targeted, but Obel later dispelled that curse, so they still didn't know the true intention. Currently, some injured knights are monitoring his condition, and when they returned to the room, it was completely empty. Iris started to sweat because she escaped the room and apologized to him. Lord Elliot commented on how she hasn't changed at all. In any case, the priority now is finding the prince. Prince Elliot said he was leaving the command of the operation to Lord Obel, and he left. After Lord Obel left, Lord Elliot informed Iris that the party had been postponed to next week. She thought it would be cancelled since Prince Henry hadn't been found. He wanted to cancel it too, but various circumstances made that impossible, and since it was a royal command, they couldn't object. Iris wondered why he would give such an order in a situation like this. Prince Elliot held her hand and said she may not feel comfortable, but with things changing, no one knew what might happen next. At the very least, she should be prepared, and he told her to try consulting his mother, the Queen, if anything happens. When she was alone, Iris decided to write a letter to the Queen. 3 days after sending a letter to the Queen, she was called by her. Although she was worried because of that incident, the Queen said she felt relieved when she saw she was safe. Iris thanked her for her concern. The Queen then asked what the consultation was about. Iris stated that her opinion goes against the royal decree, but she still asked if it would be possible to postpone next week's party indefinitely. Considering what happened with the bishop and Lady Elena and the fact that Prince Henry's fate had yet to be determined, she didn't feel it was appropriate to hold a celebration under those circumstances. The Queen listened to her carefully and said she understood how she felt, but postponement was not possible under the current conditions. As she knows, the public had not been informed about Henry's disappearance or the bishop and the Savior's betrayal. However, Henry's illness had become obvious to everyone, and he hadn't made any public appearance at all. Under these circumstances, if something were to happen to the king, fear would spread even more among the people. If things proceed normally, Elliot was the rightful heir to the throne, but that must be formally confirmed by a royal decree. Next week's party would serve as an occasion for announcing Elliot as the crown prince as well as his engagement. This party was essential to restoring peace in the kingdom, so postponement was no longer an option. Iris was surprised that Prince Elliot would become the crown prince. This was her first time hearing this. She suspected it because of the atmosphere in the palace, but now she confirmed it. The Queen told her that she was going to face many challenges in the days to come, but she was counting on her to stand by Elliot's side. Iris noticed that the Queen looked exhausted. She told her not to worry, and His Highness would definitely be able to protect this kingdom, and Prince Henry would be found soon, even if she wasn't by his side. The Queen thanked her and apologized for the miserable state she appeared in. Ever since Henry disappeared, crises from the Kingdom of Aria have kept piling up, and she has become extremely anxious. And since that previous inspection visit, Henry suddenly started leaning toward Arya. Iris was surprised that Henry was favoring the kingdom of Arya. Prince Elliot joined the conversation to tell his mother to stop because those were matters that hadn't been addressed yet. He was early because the issue that arose yesterday had been resolved. Thanks to that, he was able to make it in time for tea with Iris. The queen was glad that their relationship was very close, but told them not to forget about their responsibilities in governing. Their work must be done thoroughly without any negligence. The queen put on her coat and said today was very enjoyable. She excused herself after telling her to take care of her health. When she left, Lord Elliot apologized for interrupting their time. She said she heard it from the queen and congratulated him on his appointment as crown prince. Prince Elliot said he didn't think he was fit to become crown prince. He never imagined himself leading people and being responsible for lighting the path for his people. What he wanted more than anything was to protect her. He asked if she would accept staying by his side even if he became the crown prince later. Iris responded that she believed she might be able to do this with him. Next week's party cannot be postponed, and his appointment was official and irreversible. But she was not fit to become the queen. She wondered if she should really confess this here and now. Lord Elliot noticed that she looked like she was about to cry and asked if his feelings were a burden to her. She said it wasn't that. She wanted to support him, but she didn't have the right to stay by his side. Prince asked the reason why she thought that. Iris stated that she was going to be punished later. Even in a world where magic existed, the concept of a previous life didn't exist. Talking about something like this wasn't easy for her. He asked if there was something she couldn't tell him. She said the story she was about to tell him might sound unbelievable, but Prince said he would believe her no matter what she said. After that, she told him that she was in a game where the ending changes based on choices, and Iris's fate in that game was to be punished in the end. Even if she tried, Iris only had one ending in the game. That's why she couldn't stay by his side. Even if she tried to avoid his execution, it was no use. Prince Elliot asked if she wanted revenge on him or on the kingdom of Kalma, and she immediately refused. But Iris had a written role and she couldn't escape her destined punishment. He asked if the current events followed the plot of that game, and she said no. It was quite the opposite. There were many things she couldn't even remember. He responded that this story might be different from what she expected. Maybe this time she would survive and be able to stay alive without punishment and stay by his side. She was still talking about Iris's ending in the game, but he said the story wasn't the same as the game anymore. Lord Elliot hugged her. He told her not to worry and he would take on the punishment so it would never reach you. So she could continue staying by his side in the future. Iris asked if it was right because she kept loving him. He said he hoped she would always love him, and he loved her very much too. And he adored her. She had worked so hard to make it this far. Iris couldn't help but cry her eyes out because she had been enduring this alone. But now she wasn't alone, and her beloved lover would always be by her side.